In the summer of 1971, the Reverend Wesley P. Walters uncovered Justice Albert Neely's Bill of Costs for 1826 in the damp basement of the Chenango County Jail in Norwich, New York. This discovery settled debate surrounding the reality of Joseph Smith's 1826 court hearing and established the authenticity of the published transcript, which is now a major source documenting Joseph Smith's extensive involvement as a treasure seer. The original court transcript is no longer extant, but it was published on 3 occasions, in 1873, 1883, and 1886. Most Mormon scholars now accept the essential accuracy of the published court transcript. In this court record, Joseph Smith confessed that he had a certain stone which he had occasionally looked at to determine where hidden treasures were, and had looked for Mr. Stoll several times, that at Palmyra he had frequently ascertained in that way where lost property was of various kinds, that he had occasionally been in the habit of looking through this stone to find lost property for 3 years. It is therefore a historical fact that Joseph Smith was employed as a treasure seer for at least 3 years, which consisted of Smith putting a seer stone into the crown of his hat, bringing it close to his face, and claiming that he could see in the stone luminous images of lost objects, salt and silver mines, and buried treasures. Moreover, it is no longer credible to dismiss the testimony of Smith's neighbors in Palmyra and Manchester, New York, as fabrications or baseless attacks on Smith's character, as apologists had previously done. In this 2-part video, I will discuss, in the present video, Joseph Smith's treasure-seeking activities in Palmyra and Manchester, and, in the next video, at various locations along the Susquehanna River running through Harmony, Pennsylvania, and the southern New York counties of Chenango and Broome. The purpose of these videos is to explore some specific locations claimed for Smith's treasure quests. The viewer should be advised that while some locations are well documented and extremely credible, some should be approached with skepticism. Newspaperman James Gordon Bennett, who visited the Palmyra, Manchester, New York area in August 1831, wrote that, "On the sides and in the slopes of several of these hills in Manchester, Smith-inspired excavations are still to be seen. On the 4th of December 1833, 51 residents of the Palmyra area signed an affidavit declaring that large excavations may be seen in the earth not far from there, the Smiths' residence, where they used to spend their time digging for hidden treasure." In 1867, Palmyra resident Pomeroy Tucker wrote, "Numerous traces of the excavations left by Smith are yet remaining as evidences of his impostures and the folly of his dupes, though most of them have become obliterated by the clearing off and tilling of the lands where they were made. The pit-hole memorials of his treasure explorations were numerous in the surrounding fields and woodlands, attracting the inspection of the curious and the wonder of the superstitious. As late as March 1881, Hiram Jackway, who was born at Palmyra in 1815, said he knew the location of 3 holes in the Palmyra, Manchester area, which were claimed to have been the work of the Smiths. Testimony from the Palmyra, Manchester area residents identifies 11 locations in Manchester for Smith family treasure quests. I have marked some of these locations on this map of Manchester published in 1876 in Mackintosh's History of Ontario County, New York, which shows lot numbers and the names of owners. Number 1 on Lot 1 is the location of the Smiths' frame home. About 4 years after their arrival in Palmyra, the Smiths moved 1.5 miles south of the village on Stafford Road and took up residence in a small log cabin situated on the property of Samuel Jennings, about 58 feet north of the township line dividing Palmyra and Farmington, which was renamed Manchester in 1823. About the same time, Joseph Sr. and oldest son Alvin contracted for a 100-acre lot just across the line in Manchester. According to their Manchester neighbors, Joseph Sr. and other Smith family members commenced searching for buried treasure in 1820. The majority of these Smith-inspired digs likely date to the earliest period of Joseph Smith's activities as a treasure seer, between 1820 and 1825, or before Smith's employment with Josiah Stoll in October 1825, and subsequent treasure searches in Pennsylvania and southern New York. The earliest Smith family treasure quest likely occurred on their newly acquired Manchester land. According to Pomeroy Tucker, the inauguration of Joseph Jr.'s treasure seeing and digging took place in the spring of 1820 on a then forest hill, a short distance from his father's house. In this photograph, taken by George E. Anderson in 1907, the boys are sitting on the hill Tucker described. This hill runs north and south behind the Smith frame house, which they began building in 1823. The boys are located just south of the Smith frame house, marked A, and Jennings' cabin, marked B, which are obscured by the trees. The account of this first dig, which Tucker said came from participants yet living, has Joseph Jr. locating the spot by aid of his seer stone, the use of magic enchantment to hold the treasure to the spot, the ordering of silence, a 2-hour dig, a word carelessly spoken, and the seer's revelation that the treasure had magically slipped away under the earth. William Stafford, an early acquaintance of the Smiths, who lived about 1.5 miles south on Stafford Road, was invited by Joseph Sr. to participate in a treasure dig on Smith property. According to Stafford's 8th December 1833 statement, Joseph Jr. had seen in his stone 2 or 3 kegs of gold and silver, located not many rods from his, Smith's, house. Despite Joseph Sr.'s leading the diggers through various folk magic exercises, they failed to unearth any treasure. Joseph Jr., whom Stafford said remained in the Smiths' house during the operation, later explained that the treasure's guardian spirit had caused the money to sink, and Joseph Sr. declared that a mistake had been made in the performance of the exercises. While Stafford did not describe the exact location of the dig, he evidently intended the hill east of the Smiths' home, since he introduced his account by stating that the Smiths believed that nearly all the hills in this part of New York were thrown up by human hands, and in them were large caves, which Joseph Jr. could see by placing a stone of singular appearance in his hat, that he could see within the above-mentioned caves large gold bars and silver plates, that he could also discover the spirits in whose charge these treasures were, clothed in ancient dress. Peter Ingersoll, who first met the Smiths in 1822, saw Joseph Sr. use both a mineral rod and a seer stone to locate buried treasure on his own property. On one occasion, according to Ingersoll, both Joseph Sr. and Alvin Smith placed a stone in a hat and demonstrated its use, Joseph Sr. declaring, "If you only knew the value there is back of my house," and pointing to a place near. "There," exclaimed he, "is one chest of gold, and another of silver." Joseph Sr.'s phrase, "back of my house," may also be a reference to the hill east of the Smiths' residence. Joseph Smith is claimed to have also been involved in treasure digging on Stafford family property. Joshua Stafford, who owned land south of the Smiths on Stafford Road on Manchester lots 7 and 9, told Isaac Butts that young Joe Smith and himself dug for money in his orchard and elsewhere nights. Butts personally saw holes in the orchard which were 4 or 5 feet square and 3 or 4 feet deep. Cornelius R Stafford, born in 1813, a son of Jonathan Stafford, brother of William Stafford, remembered that there was much digging for money on our farm and about the neighborhood, and that he saw his cousin Joshua Stafford dig a hole 20 feet long, 8 broad, and 7 deep. Samantha Payne, born in 1808, daughter of William Stafford, was possibly living on a portion of the Joshua Stafford property when she said in 1881 that Joseph Smith dug upon many of the farms in the neighborhood as well as upon the farm on which she now resides, and that some of the holes which he dug can now be seen. Another early Smith-inspired dig, related by William Stafford and supported in several sources, occurred on the hill farther east from the Smith home on the Clark Chase farm. In this instance, Joseph Sr. and one of his sons approached Stafford, informed him that Joseph Jr. had located some very remarkable and valuable treasures, and requested the use of one of his black sheep for a blood sacrifice. Stafford, who was not present at the dig, said nothing about its location, but late Palmyra, Manchester residents located it on Old Sharp, a hill situated on the west side of the Canandaigua Road, just south of the township line in the northwest quadrant of Manchester Lot Number 2. In 1992, I took this photograph from the top of this hill. Probably the most extensive Smith-inspired dig resulted in the excavation of a cave in a hill known to later Manchester residents as Miner's Hill, situated on land subsequently owned by Amos Miner and his heirs. The hill was photographed in 1907 by George E. Anderson. The man in the photo points to the approximate location of the cave. Lorenzo Saunders, a Smith family friend and former resident of Palmyra, was an eyewitness to the digging on the hill's northeast side. I used to go there and see them work, he recalled in 1884. I seen the old man Smith dig there day in and day out. Joseph Smith Jr. never did work. Joseph Jr. evidently had a different role in the quest. Joseph Sr. told Saunders that Joe Jr. could see in his peepstone what there was in that cave, and that young Joe could see a man sitting on a gold chair. Old Joe said he was a king, i.e., the man in the chair, the king of one of the Indian tribes who was shut up in there in the time of one of their big battles. After a tunnel of considerable length had been excavated, the diggers placed a heavy wooden door at the entrance. While Saunders believed the cave had been dug in 1826, the historical context of his account suggests an earlier date. Saunders declared, "I am one of them that went and tore the door down to the cave. My father was in possession, and he ordered us to break that door down and put the hole up." The cave had evidently been completed before the death of Enoch Saunders, Lorenzo's father, on the 10th of October, 1825. Although before his death, Enoch Saunders was in possession of or leased the land on which the hill and cave were situated, Lorenzo Saunders reveals that at the time the door was removed and the cave's entrance blocked, Benjamin Tabor owned the land. He said it was a farm of 100 acres, and he had it on an article of agreement. Extent County records confirmed Tabor's ownership. although the exact date of purchase cannot be determined. Significantly, county records also reveal that the previous owner of this land was Abner Cole, who, as editor of the Palmyra Reflector, later ridiculed Joseph Smith's treasure-seeking activities on this property. Cole mortgaged the property in 1820, but continued paying taxes on it until at least 1823. In 1824, Cole was experiencing financial difficulty, resulting in the seizure of several properties in Palmyra and Macedon, including his office lot on Palmyra's Main Street. It was probably about this time that Cole also lost possession of Manchester Lot 2. Cole's interest in Manchester Lot 2 may explain his awareness of Smith's treasure-seeking activities, particularly his knowledge of Walters the magician, who has since been identified as Luman Walters of Gorham, New York. According to Saunders, at the time the big hole was dug in the hill, they was duped by one Walters, who pretended to be a conjurer. I heard Willard Chase say that he was duped. They could not be deceived in it after he had gone through with certain movements and charged them $7. Cole claimed that after Walters' departure from Manchester, his mantle fell upon the prophet, Joe Smith, Jr. On the 23rd of January, 1834, Benjamin Tabor deeded about 100 acres of land on Manchester Lot 2 to Lorenzo Saunders for $3,000. On the 26th of November, 1836, Saunders visited Albany and obtained a letter of patent from the state of New York for the same property. On the 28th of January, 1839, Saunders deeded about 48 acres of this patented land to Amos Minor, who then became owner of the hill and cave. Minor's heirs held the property for 3 generations, and the Minor understanding regarding the cave is best explained by grandson Wallace Minor, born in 1843, who told Brigham Young University professor M. Wilford Polson in 1932 that he, Smith, dug a 40-foot cave right on this very farm. He dug in about 20 feet, and the angel told him this was not holy ground, but to move south to Cumorah. Martin Harris stayed at this home while I was about 13 years of age, about 1856, and I used to go over to the diggings about 100 rods or a little less southeast of this house. It is near a clump of bushes. Martin Harris regarded it as fully as sacred as the Mormon hill diggings. Christopher M. Stafford, a nephew of William Stafford, who moved from Manchester to Ohio in 1831, claimed to have been inside the cave, evidently before it was closed by the Saunders family. In 1867, Pomeroy Tucker reported that from the lapse of time and natural causes, the cave has been closed for years, very little mark of its former existence remaining to be seen. Manchester resident Ezra Pierce told William and Edmund Kelly in 1881 that the cave was still closed. But in 1884, Samantha Payne said that the cave can be seen today. The present owner of the farm, Mr. Wallace Minor, dug out the cave, which had fallen in, and that she had been in it once. Orson Saunders, a nephew of Lorenzo Saunders, who also visited the cave about this time, said that he found quite a large chamber, many feet in extent, with the marks of the pick plainly visible in the light of his candles. He said the passageway within the chamber was 8 feet wide and 7 feet high. In 1893, a reporter from the New York Herald, accompanied by Orson Saunders and John H. Gilbert, visited the cave site and reported that the door jambs leading into the cave are still sound and partly visible, but the earth has been washed down by storms and the opening of the cave nearly filled, so that it cannot be entered at present. The door jamb is heavy plank of beech or maple, and the inscriptions, which had evidently been cut deeply by a sharp knife, were partially worn away. By 1932, Palmyra historian Thomas L. Cook reported that no trace of the old Joe Smith cave can be found. The cave remained closed until April 1974, when Andrew H. Comer, then the owner of the property, cleared the cave's opening with a bulldozer. This photo shows Comer standing in the cave. At that time, the cave was described as about 6 feet high at the largest point in the middle and 10 to 12 feet long, and carved into a rock-hard clay hillside. The walls and ceiling of the cave appear to have been dug or picked by hand. Today, the entrance of the cave is closed and overgrown with foliage. The cave was located on the side of this hill behind this house, which I photographed in 1992. Undoubtedly, the most significant of Joseph Smith's treasure quests occurred on a prominent hill now known to Mormons as the Hill Cumorah, situated on the east side of the Canandaigua Road in the northwest quadrant of Manchester Lot 85, then a part of the Randall Robinson Farm. This is the hill from which Joseph Smith allegedly removed the gold plates on the 22nd of September, 1827. In commemoration of this event, Mormons have erected a monument on the northwest side of the hill near the summit. While Mormons tend to see this event in isolation, it actually occurred in a larger money-digging context. Following Joseph Smith's announcement in 1823 that the hill contained gold plates, it became the scene of serious digging by Joseph Smith Sr. and other treasure seekers. One unidentified Manchester resident said that Mormon Hill had been long designated as the place in which countless treasures were buried. Joseph the Elder has spaded up many a foot of the hillside to find them, and Joseph Jr. had on more than one occasion accompanied him. In 1880, Frederick G. Mather said, returning to the vicinity of Palmyra from Pennsylvania, Smith and his followers began to dig for the plates on the eastern side of the hill. Mather connected this digging with the events of the 22nd of September, 1827, but in 1885, Lorenzo Saunders corrected Mather's dating. Saunders, who visited the hill within days following Smith's claimed removal of the plates, said he found no disturbance of the earth except a large hole which had been dug by the money diggers about a year or two before. In 1885, Saunders told Thomas Gregg, I went on the next Sunday, following Smith's removal of the plates, with 5 or 6 other ones, and we hunted the side hill by course, and could not find no place where the ground had been broke. There was a large hole where the money diggers had dug a year or two before, but no fresh dirt. Saunders similarly told William H. Kelly, we went there, and we examined the hill all over where he claimed to got the plates, and we could not find a place that was broke, and there was no plates on the ground where the hill was not broke. Robinson said he tried many times to find the hole where he took them out. That is on the west hill. It was cleared off. In August 1831, James Gordon Bennett noted in his diary that on Gold Bible Hill there is a hole 30 or 40 feet into the side, 6 feet in diameter. The existence of this hole on the northeast side of the hill was subsequently verified by Pomeroy Tucker in 1867, who said that the excavation was yet partially visible, and Edward Stevenson, who reported seeing the hole in 1871. Early residents of Palmyra, Manchester probably mistook this northeastern excavation for the location of the plate's former repository. which Oliver Cowdery in 1835 said was on the west side of the hill, not far from the top, down its side. According to early Smith convert, Joseph Knight Sr., at least one of Smith's treasure-seeking friends, one Samuel F. Lawrence, who was also a seer, had been to the hill and knew about the things in the hill, and he was trying to obtain them. Willard Chase also said Lawrence had been to the hill with Smith in 1825 and had seen the plates in his stone, but that Smith later said that he had taken Lawrence to the wrong location. In October 1825, a resident of South Bainbridge, New York, named Josiah Stoll, visited Manchester and hired Joseph Smith to locate a lost Spanish mine in Harmony, Pennsylvania. Joseph Smith's activities as a treasure seer along the Susquehanna River in Pennsylvania and southern New York between November 1825 and March 1826 will be the subject of Part 2. See you there.